Many people in here. There is so much passion in here. There is so much excitement in here. I am just thrilled to be here. I'm really honored. I'm really excited to have you all here. The sheriff gave me the notes that he used for his acceptance speech. They're right here in my pocket. And I will say this. There's only three things I really want to say to you all tonight. The first is that you think about some of the governors that we've had in our state. I talked to one of my good friends from Chattooga County. I spent the day today in northwest Georgia. I was in Menlo, Georgia at 9:30 this morning. Here, Chattooga County. I was in, just so you know, Savannah, Georgia yesterday morning at 9. And we will have put by the end, we started the week in Plains, Georgia at Sunday school. We ended up down in Blakely, Georgia later on last Sunday. We've been to Dade County. We've been back down to Montezuma, Georgia. We've been back up here. We will have put 2,300 miles on our car this week. The first thing I want you to know is that I'm not running to be the governor of Atlanta. I'm running to be the governor of Georgia. Second thing is this. You think about the people who have been governor of this state, and there are some names that many of you remember, and there are some folks, for better or for worse, that have their statues on the Capitol grounds and that have towered over our politics, and I'll just pick four. Richard Russell, Ellis Arnold, who's got his statue down on the Capitol grounds, Herman Talmadge, who towered over our politics, as I said, for better or for worse, for a long time, and Carl Sanders. Those four men were 32, 35, 35, and 37 years old when they got elected. I'll be 39 this year, and I feel like I might have waited too long, so I apologize. But we cannot wait any longer. My family moved to this state in 1768. To McDuffie County, Georgia. And as they moseyed on down to southwest Georgia, the other part of my family moved in 1840s to Luddville in Pickens County, which wasn't called Luddville at the time because my ancestor Lud Langford hadn't been there long enough. But the Langfords that are here tonight, my cousins, my great uncles, it is wonderful to see you all. I'm originally from Calhoun, Georgia, so this northwest Georgia. After all those generations, my children are 10th generation Georgians. And we cannot, I am running for governor because I cannot bear the thought that after all of those generations, those two boys who are 7 and 5 today might have to move away from this state to get a good job or a good education. We have every ingredient that we need in this state to be an economic powerhouse, to be an education powerhouse, to lead the South, to lead the country. We've done it before. Our history as a state is one of charging forward into the future over and over again. We led the civil rights movement. We led, over the years, the economic revitalization of the South. For the longest time, Georgia was a beacon of hope for people across this region in so many ways. The Hope Scholarship was something we talked about tonight. It was the national model for access to higher education. We have some of the finest education institutions in the world. We've got the people that we need to charge ahead. But we're not taking those ingredients right now and putting them together in ways that make sense. And we are beginning to see that we are planting seeds not for the future, but we're eating our seed corn. And we're calling it saving money. Nowhere is the failure of leadership worse than in terms of public education in this state.
Yes.
My wife is a high school teacher. Would you raise your hand if you are an educator? Let's give them a round of applause. following fact. You have witnessed in the last 5 years, and maybe a little bit longer, the worst contraction of public education in the history of Georgia. Period. We have 9,000 fewer teachers today than we did 5 years ago. Many school districts, 2/3 of them in this state, have had to cut instructional days. We have seen, not just in K through 12, but in higher education, in 1 year, with regard to technical schools and vocational schools, we talked about it earlier today, in 1 year, because of changes to that HOPE system, we lost 45,000 technical college students. That's amazing. That's not just an economic disaster for those 45,000 families who are not moving into the middle class, who are not getting those skills because they can't afford it. It's an economic disaster for all of us that's waiting to happen. And we have to invest in our people again. That's how Georgia got where it was. And over the last decade, we watched us creep out to lead the South economically. And in the late 1990s and in 2000, Georgia was number 13 or 14 in terms of per capita or median income. And in the last decade, we watched that drop by $6,500 almost. That is a real pay cut for a middle-class family. And when you compare us to other states, we've gone from near the top to near the bottom. We're in the 30s now. 20-something states have passed the state of Georgia in terms of our income. And it's because we've stopped investing in our people. And let me say this, it's not because of the national government. I mean, the president's president of all those other states too, right?
That's right. That's right.
I believe, I know, that education is economic development. We have to invest in our people in order to drive prosperity. In order to have the kind of economy that we want, we have to take care of those average everyday families. And the way that we do that is by investing in our people again. And I believe, and we have a plan that is very distinct, that calls for us to invest in education in ways that make sense. In other words, have a real priority. And if we have my proposal, which is to separate out the education budget. That education budget, we would do it first. We would hold the politicians in Atlanta accountable for exactly what it is that we need to fund our schools, and then we turn to the rest of the budget. And we make the tough decisions, we figure out what it will be, and it will be hard, it's not easy, there's a lot of issues over there, there's a lot of lobbyists on that side of the budget that say we need line items A, B, and C, but if we enforce that priority on education, we will be protecting our seed corn. Same way we all make budgets at home. I have to pay my mortgage, I have to put gas in my car, and I have to put food on my table. And then I decide what else it is I'm going to do. We have to do that. It doesn't mean you raise taxes. And let me say this. They act like cutting education saves money. But we know better.
That's right.
And we know that we're reaping the economic benefits or that dismal harvest from our disinvestment right now. The biggest employers in our state are telling people, including the governor's office, that they don't have the people they need to do the jobs that need to get done.
That's right.
Home Depot, NCR, went to a conference just 2 months ago and said, we can't expand our operations in Georgia because we can't find the workers that we need.
That's
Period.
right.
They're going to go to Wisconsin and expand instead. And let me say this. If we truly prioritize, we can not only protect education, but the cost savings that they say are out there are not real. In addition to all those folks, to all those 2/3 of the districts that have cut instructional days, 91 school districts, more than half, have raised property taxes in this state to make up for the governor's cuts to education. So you can tell all your Republican friends that the governor's education cuts become property tax increases. That's right. And that doesn't help anyone. We can prioritize education first, and we can have an economy that works for everybody. And let me just say, this is the last thing I'm going to say. And I've got a whole speech here. If you want to read the whole thing, you can. But we'll leave it here for you, in fact. Y'all had so many people here speak from the heart tonight, and I just felt like I'd do the same thing. We are not the only people who are seeing what's happening in this state. We are not. And I'll tell you, my friend John Barge was the state school superintendent, the chief education official in our state, and he's a statewide Republican, and he ran against the governor in his own primary because of how badly the governor has mishandled public education.
That's right. Yes.
And a huge number of Republicans came out and voted for him. More than a quarter of all the Republicans in this state came out to vote against the governor. 28% came out in their own primary to vote against the governor. This is not a partisan issue. We're not the only ones who see it. Before I decided to run, I was in Vidalia, Georgia, on an education task force, and 150 white Republicans showed up to talk to a Democratic state senator from Atlanta because they are watching their education system get bled dry. And they want answers, and they can't get it from the people in Atlanta right now. And I'll tell you something else. Y'all know well, right here, our friend David Pennington. I talked to him the day after the primary. I called him. And you know what he told me? He said, Jason, I've traveled this state, and one of the things I see is that we are just too poor. And we're getting poorer. And you can't be that poor and have a business climate that works. That's the far right. That's our friends in the Tea Party who are talking about the exact same issues that the rest of us see. There is a generationally significant moment in Georgia today. There is a moment where there's something we all agree on. We have to invest in our people again. We have to make sure that our state is doing right by the average, everyday, middle-class person. Or we will never have the economy we want. We will never have the future that we want. And we doesn't have to do that. And do not be afraid to go to your friends outside of this room and talk about it. We had 71 people this morning at breakfast in Menlo, Georgia. I bet you 1/3, 1/2 of them were Republicans. We cannot be afraid to carry that message because our state doesn't just need Democrats. It needs everyone to come together and look at what the problems are and try to solve them. I'll conclude with this. My children will grow up in a bright future in this state. I know we have the ingredients. I know we have the ability. I know that if we properly invest in our people, we are Georgia people. And Georgians have always and forever continued to build, continued to prosper, continued to take advantage of those opportunities when they have them. They're not looking for a handout, but they are looking for the little opportunities, the little things that we can do to truly invest in their future. And if we give that opportunity, they will take it. And the people of this state, the middle-class folks with money in their pocket, will go out and drive the economy. And we will prepare that prosperous future. And let me say the last thing about the pride I have tonight. That future that I'm talking about is not a future that leaves anybody out.
That's right.
It doesn't leave out people in rural Georgia. It doesn't leave out people in South Georgia. It doesn't leave out people in the northwest corner. It doesn't leave out people in the northeast corner. It doesn't leave out people in Rome or Atlanta. We all have a place in that economy of the future. We all have a place in that future. And I'll tell you one other thing. It is a multicultural, multiracial, multi-ethnic future that looks a lot more like this room. Than it does like this.
Yeah.
You all should be so proud of the group of people that are sitting here, the passion that is in this room, the excitement that is in this room, and the ability that is in this room to truly build the state that we all want for our kids and for our grandkids. If you will help me, I will make you proud of us. Thank you so very much.